let's get into the topic of the evening. So first off, let me just I guess I'll give some backstory to this first before I get into what Ethan's most important jacket detail is. So, I'll just we have a separate group chat. This is now on the Discord. It's just like a friend chat, so don't feel left out if you're not in it. But we were just talking, and yeah, you're just not a friend. So sorry guys, we gotta have some boundaries. But so occasionally in this chat, people will share things they just bought. Like I'll share, like I posted about my asking if buying this ring jacket was a good purchase. We talk about a lot of stuff, and it was a great website. Website.
It was a great website.com.
Great website.com. Punto.com.
We got that domain.
Yeah. If we could get greatwebsite.com, I mean, we'd probably have the best website, right?
It's for sale.
Inherently, you have the greatest website.
Yeah.
Like, you can't say best website.
It has to be the greatest website.
It's the greatest website. It's the greatest website written in Comic Sans.
But
Papyrus. That is under construction.
So I'll just had posted this picture of if we're talking just about the cloth, it's a great cloth. Of it's like a brown and orange plaid, or I guess like slightly orange yellowy. I'll put a picture of it in the chat real quick here.
It's a brown.
It's right here. It's from J Press. Yeah, Aldous, why don't you tell us about the jacket first? Let's just talk about when you did the whole thing first.
Right. What's your thought?
This is like a fucking episode of Judge Judy. This is like
not.
I should have been the one. No, I should have been the one. It's like, present your evidence. I need to see pictures of this jacket. How did this start? That's how Judge Judy says.
How did this start?
So talk about the jacket first.
Describe the jacket, right? That's what you want me to do?
Yeah, I put the picture in the chat, but I mean you can talk about it too.
Right. J Press jacket from the 70s. Kind of odd for a J Press jacket. It's not a 3-button. It's a 2-button. It's got double vents. It's got double vents, darted fronts, and a ticket pocket. So J Press, but kind of odd. And most critically, though, the bottom button is spaced away from the center button in such a way that it ends below the pocket line. And I think that's even skewed to talk about why that is so triggering for him.
Well, not triggering. I don't buy things. So, but okay. So basically, what happened was he posted this jacket. I mean, it's fine. He already owns it. I can't change that. Okay, I can't do anything about that. I mean, unless he wants to burn it, that's fine. But the point was, I was like, oh, okay. Hey, look at the bottom buttons line up with the pocket, and that is something that I am very adamant on about my own jackets. And I also got into this. I think I also teased it in a previous stream or a podcast episode. Oh yeah, with our first take with Young Chomsky. Unfortunately,
lost to time.
Yeah, because we had some audio issues, but we re-recorded it, which is what you are hearing on all podcast platforms today. But anyway. So this thing is a very important detail to me that I have had probably since I first ever started getting into any semblance of menswear. Including the Great Gatsby era, including H&M stuff, including a lot of things. I've just had this kind of thing happen. So when you look at Aldous' jacket here, you can see that the bottom button goes beyond the pocket line. And that is something that is very uncommon for me to see, and it's something that is technically more of a detail you see on kind of late 70s, 80s, 90s jackets. You probably think of stuff you see at the thrift store where it's even more egregious, because usually when that happens, it is a lower buttoning stance.
I mean, to be clear, this is something that you see on probably most jackets.
Yes, on most probably modern jackets, right? And my history with it is that when I was looking at 1930s images, pictures, and stuff like that, I took in everything, right? Like I looked at the way the lapel is, the blunting of the edges, the height of the gorge. I took it all in. I don't measure it all. Yeah, welcome. I don't measure everything out. I don't check. Oh, it's got to be 3 3/4, whatever. But what I always noticed was that the bottom button aligns with the pocket. It is very, very common, at least back in those days, to find a jacket to that. Of course, there were exceptions to the rule. I'm sure you could find 30s jackets, 40s jackets, 20s jackets that, change it up like that. But my thing was all the best jackets that I saw that engaged me all had this detail that the bottom pocket is in line with the button. And that is something that I've inherently had with me throughout this whole thing, because again, normally when it goes beyond the pocket line, it usually means it's a lower buttoning stance. It doesn't have like the same kind of like midway dissection point or whatever. Although I don't really think about midway dissection point, because typically, like we said with sack jackets, when you buy something that has that kind of like when you buy like a sack jacket, it's normally going to be good. So if I buy something that has the same pocket and button harmony, it's usually going to be an appropriate buttoning point for me, and it won't look too dated. That's also again one thing, because if we look at like Lawrence Fellows illustrations, we look at 1930s catalogs, all the kind of stuff. It's always in harmony. So it's kind of one of those things where if you get that right, the rest of the jacket will normally be okay, or at least it will be good for your body. And so a lot of my jackets, actually no, every single one of my jackets contains that detail where the bottom pocket is in line with the bottom button. And that is something I inherently look at immediately whenever I look at something. And again, it is not something that I measure out or whatever, but like I think Spencer and I, we've talked about how we buy on eBay. And I have said many times that when I look on eBay, I have a wide berth. Some people have very specific search categories. Some people have very, like they look up, oh, I got to have heart shaft remarks. I got to look up 120s. I think Put This On has like predetermined search categories that you can use at home to find quality suits, right, Spencer?
That is correct. It's on every single one of our eBay roundups, your searches.
Yes, that is correctamundo. And so I don't do that. What I do is I have a wide berth. I literally look up vintage jacket. Maybe I'll add like vintage jacket navy or 38R just to kind of narrow it down a little bit. But I've always just been like, I'll look at the picture and if
really quick take of virus. This is not a zebra. This is a mule painted.
Oh, fuck that. Oh, is that like a mod?
No, this is a thing that's in the game.
Oh, it's part of the game. Okay, fair enough.
Like a P.T. Barnum circus.
Greatest show.
P.T. Barnum was right, huh?
Uh-huh. Sorry, go on.
So, what was I saying? Yeah, so I typically do everything just based on that initial look of the garment. And again, most people who get into menswear tend to look at the wrong things, right? They like in my DM sometimes, especially when I was starting out early on, they will be like, hey, look, I bought a vintage jacket on eBay and it's got a cool Union label or whatever. And they're like, I can't wait to be 30s like you. But then it's got like a really drop buttoning point. And, of course, there's other stuff too, like, the lapels might be weird or the shoulders are too padded. And it will look a little bit dated, right? And it's not exactly what a 30s or 40s jacket would look like. Sometimes they'll buy like an 80s thing, which is more common to have the drop buttoning point. And so it's one of those things I try and caution people where, like, you're not technically going for that kind of classic look because of, and that's like one mitigating reason, to prevent that from happening. Again, in the case of Aldous, it's a cool jacket. And he lucked out on a jacket that's not, as dropped, because we've also talked about how we both agree that in most cases, when that's the case, when it goes beyond the pocket line, you have a really like 80s jacket, which is not flattering on almost anybody.
Yeah, I'm going to jump in now and say that center button is not dropped at all. I have the Spear McKay jacket I'm wearing now is a good comparison for it, because they're both the same length, about the same color. And actually, if you put one jacket on top of the other, the buttoning positions on both the Spear McKay and J-Press jackets are the same. And also the actual height of the pockets are the same. So I'm going to see if I can post this to chat.
You have to upload it on, yeah, there you go, yeah.
Yeah, side by side. The Spear McKay jacket on the left and the J-Press jacket.
Fucking came prepared, right. I tell you. It's like,
well, yeah.
I mean, it's like also another peek behind the curtain. Another peek behind the curtain. You guys are all seeing this debate happen for the first time. Everyone in this group chat has been seeing this go on all fucking week. It's like every fucking day.
And let's not forget that Spencer also saw it when I was talking to my friend Doug.
That's
where
right.
This was also an issue. That is correct. And so here is the issue here. So let me explain why I do not like this. Because
yes, you're gonna have to.
It's not about where the button.
Even before you say anything, I think our fundamental disagreement is what effects that lower button stance has. Now, Ethan is right, and he mentioned it earlier that usually it's a good rule of thumb to have to avoid jackets with a button lower than the pocket line, because that usually also brings the center button down with it. And when that happens, you have a really misshapen jacket, and I think we're all in agreement there. But
yes,
with this J-press jacket and also lots of Ivy stuff, you look at old Brooks Brothers catalogs, for example, they also feature this. The bottom button is below the pocket line, but it's not because the center button is lower. The center button is actually in a fine place. It's just that the spacing between the buttons is such that the bottom button happens to be lower than the pocket line. And in those cases, I don't have the same ejections that Ethan has. But I'll let Ethan now explain why. So yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. I will go ahead. So this is exactly why I think I sent. Hopefully, I sent the right picture here. Yes, I did. Okay, so this is a picture of Aldous here. So the reason why I don't like it is not just because of the presumed changing of the button point, but it's more about pocket. It's what's about the harmony of the rest of the jacket. Where all the buttons together should be in harmony with everything else of the jacket. Because I look at things, not like again, I don't take out like a ruler and do everything, but I just look at things inherently. I'm like, okay, immediately yes or no, this is what I'm into. And so, when you see here, the on the left, the Spear and McKay jacket has the pocket button harmony there, and so it feels kind of more natural and harmonious in my eyes. While on the right, it has this kind of weird disjointed horizontal plane thing that's going on, and I definitely don't like it. It almost looks like they have a regular jacket, and they like I just said, they spaced it out oddly, and it to the point where the bottom button, it goes beyond the pocket line, and to me that inherently is just weird, and I'll say it, I hate it. It's
If I
just
could
wrong.
interject, though, the reason why the spacing is wider, and that's why the bottom button is below the pocket line. But I think I'm speculating here, but I think the reason for that was perhaps Brooks Brothers had a machine, a machine that pre-cuts 3 buttons into a jacket. And in their older sack jackets, the center button is higher, so consequently, when they punched in the holes, the bottom button would line up with the pocket line. But it seems like moving on into the 70s and 80s and beyond that, they kept the same machine, if they have such a machine, but they dropped that center button, meaning that a lot of Brooks Brothers jackets from the 70s and 80s end up with that button lower. But it seems to me more an accident, and they didn't think it was particularly important, and that's why it is more than a style choice, I suppose.
Yeah, so
Or
when you
style
look
mistake.
at this picture of Die Workwear's avatar, I forgot what it is, Spencer. Like, is this
Oh,
like
it's Elliot Richardson, the Attorney General during Nixon's tenure
There you go.
as president.
There you go. So yeah, if you
Biden
look at here
yeah.
again on this jacket, it just looks like Al just said. It looks like a regular sack jacket that just happens to have the buttons moved lower for some random reason, and that was definitely a thing for like again the late '60s, '70s kind of era of sack jackets, and also moving forward. And again, that kind of hits the point where it just looks like a regular jacket that they put the buttons on in the wrong space, and that inherently to me,
I don't think it's a random reason though, Ethan. Sack jackets, we love them. I think that much is clear. But if I had to really think about it, I would have to say that center button on a traditional sack jacket is actually kind of high. Now, it's certainly within the realm of acceptability. It's not the exact place that I'd like my center button holes to be. There's a range here that we're working with. It is on the higher end of that range, though. The placements of the center button on laser sack jackets, like the one that Elliot Richardson's wearing, the workwear guy. If I had to pick a quote unquote correct place for center button, I think that's it. And usually with other jackets, they also narrowed the spacing as well to line up with the pocket. Ethan's right in that, generally speaking, the bottom button does line up. But what I haven't got yet, and what I think we'll need to explain, Ethan, is what exactly does that drop button do? I can see it having the effect if that lower button also comes in conjunction with a lower center button as well. But just that bottom button below the pocket line.
well, like you hit it on the head. It looks like they got a regular jacket that they just misaligned and they put the buttons lower. All 3 of the buttons technically lower.
Yeah, it's
That
like they
is
had a machine that
exactly,
punched 3 buttons and they just moved it down
and
to
that
go.
inherently, again, that's is my whole thing. It looks like a regular jacket that they just put the buttons just like maybe like an inch or so off, and it just goes down. And to me, it just doesn't look right to me. I mean, again, chat, if you have a thing there, you feel free to discuss it, and we'll bring it up on the in the discussion, I guess. And of course, later on, everyone's going to get to say their own piece about it. But it inherently looks like it's a mistake to me because again, when you look back at the previous stuff, I mean, you could also argue that it's a stylistic choice, like Aldous said. It is like a more of like a late 60s, 70s thing, although there are 40s and 50s stuff that definitely do that. But
60s stuff too.
I mean, yeah, I mean, but again, overall, to me, it looks disproportionate in terms of the overall jacket section itself, disregarding where the buttoning point is on you. Because to me, a jacket exists both ways, right? On a person and off a person. Or a jacket exists whether there's a person wearing it or not. So it has to be in harmony with itself. And I've one of those things like like the spacing between stuff in the 30s to the 60s, a 3-button jacket will be different. 3-roll 2 jacket will be different with all those different things. But what is common in both of those eras is that the jackets had the bottom pocket and button harmony, and so again it stands out to me so much that I can't do it. And the thing is that we will kind of get to. See, like more like it just adopted the pattern without much thought. I mean, that's probably what it is, because I think, technically, I'm sure that there is like a minuscule buttoning point difference. I mean, again, if you look at like I just said, with the 60s jackets, they're a little bit higher. And so in the 70s, where you have much more of like a masculine feel, you want that broader shoulder, even if it's a sack suit, they did drop the button stance just a little bit. I mean, might not be a lot, in the case of like, like Aldous, right, where the buttoning point is still technically where it should be. And so it's not that important in terms of body proportions, but in terms of the jacket's proportions to itself, it has a different look to it. It looks dropped, and it is dropped literally because of that reason. And I don't like that at all. And I've kept this kind of standard to myself, no matter what I've been doing, because Spencer and I have been collecting vintage for such a long time, and even back then, when I'm buying, even before I had a whole wardrobe full of stuff, I would be very adamant on not having anything like that. And you would think that it would be very limiting to have a wardrobe, but as you guys can all see, I have a very giant wardrobe that I have kind of adhered this to. And I guess we can talk about in a little bit, like, looking at your own wardrobe and how you buy things. But like, to me, this is a very important thing that I stick to. It's almost like how I feel about like a low vamp loafer compared to a high vamp loafer. You could compare it to maybe the size of a foulard, like the size of the little squares in there. That's something I also think
Shirt
is
collars.
very picky. But what? Huh?
Shirt collars. That's probably the number 2
Shirt
thing
collars.
you're picky about.
Yeah, I would have to have it longer because, again, I always wear things with or without ties. So if something doesn't work with a tie, it doesn't mean I should wear it, because I don't have shirts that I just do for casual unless it's a sport, like a Cuban collar or a sport shirt collar. So I don't, it's all those kinds of things that I kind of adhere to. And the result, which is kind of the greater overall topic that I think is important, is having a wardrobe that I am 100% happy about, because, when you look at how people buy things before, and I'm sure we're going to get into this with Aldous in a sec, and Spencer can probably back me up on this, is that when you start out buying in menswear, you don't have a giant, swath of resources to buy things. So say, like, for me, obviously I knew I couldn't afford like Tom Ford or whatever, or Ralph Lauren or something. So I would be at the mercy of whatever is on eBay or whatever was in Paper Moon or whatever is in Goodwill at the time. And so say I find a navy jacket there, and it's got the 3-button, 3-roll sack suit thing, whatever, but the button stance is a little bit dropped. If this was a long time ago, where before I could even know about ring jacket or spear McKay or anything, I'd probably be like, well, I guess I'm gonna have to buy this because I don't see anything else. And that probably was the case back then. Well, maybe not with that particular detail, but maybe it was a jacket with too big of a shoulder pad, or or something like that, where I wasn't completely I wasn't completely anal about it until like now or something like that. But it's like, eventually you get to a point where you don't have to look at eBay or whatever. You don't have to be at the mercy of whatever is in the store. You can just either wait to find a thing, or you can go commission it yourself, or that's basically it. You either make it yourself or you wait for someone to make it for you. And I've gotten to a stage where it helps that I've gathered a giant wardrobe filled with pieces that I like, where I don't have to wait anymore. I also don't adhere to the whole idea of like a uniform or whatever, where I have to have certain pieces, like, like, oh, I got to get a navy jacket for this. And I've also looked out because Spear McKay made a great hop sack, and it's going to serve me forever. And so double-breasted waistcoat brings up a good topic where, Ethan, have you not mentioned how anal you are about this detail until now? The thing is, if you haven't been reading, you definitely won't know, because I have said this in the general guide to vintage menswear. I think Spencer knows about this, where even in our presentation and the giant blog post, I say the important thing is to look at the pocket line. I think, Spencer, you remember that, right? I think we said that in the even in the live presentation.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. You did mention that presentation. No, I mean that's something you've been obsessed with. Maybe not obsessed with, but something you've talked about for as long as I've known you.
Right. And then the thing is, Aldous would say that he is right that some people just don't think about it, right? I mean, Aldous himself has said that.
I also had a few points here, even.
Oh, go ahead.
So the pictures we've been looking at so far are pictures of jackets hanging off hangers, flat on hangers, just hanging from a peg. But
on you too.
Yes, but it's not. That's not. We can't, even based on the way it looks on the hanger, makes a sweeping decision as to whether the jacket's good or not and whether you would buy it or not. But that's not the only
why
condition.
there's a picture of you wearing it.
But then in pictures of me wearing it doesn't look bad because the eye is drawn to that center button. There is an imbalance between the pocket and the lower button, but it's only most apparent when it's hanging on a hanger. As soon as you put it on me standing still or a mannequin, it goes away because you have that V coming down from the neck, pointing towards the center button. You have a V coming up again from the open quarters towards the center button. You have the actual shape of the jacket drawing the eye towards that center button. The only ratio you'd notice then is the ratio that's formed with the dividing line at that center button. The top half above that and the bottom half below that. You wouldn't really notice the imbalance between the pockets, especially if you're moving and if you're hashtag pocket fisting. That becomes even harder to notice. So I can see what Ethan's coming from, and sure, ideally you'd have a jacket that looks pleasing to the eye and is perfectly balanced in all three states, on the hanger, on the mannequin, and in real life. But as far as I'm concerned, it looks fine in two of those three states, and shouldn't that be enough? Isn't that fine then? Then why?
No.
Why is the fact that it doesn't look good on the hanger enough to kill it completely? If it looks fine in person,
should be
on the body.
Here's the thing: things should be all three of those things. That is the exact answer there. I think should be all three. It's like, I get into this argument. About film score all the time, where people are like, "Oh, film score shouldn't. Orchestral film scores are they're outdated. They're always so loud. Like that's why we have minimal film scores." But I feel like you can have a minimal score and be orchestral at the same time. I mean, like there's this idea that we always have to default to whatever this thing is because of the connotations around it, or it's. I hate that idea of succumbing or relenting to things, because there is absolutely, you can have both, all three, or all those things hit, and so like that is definitely the thing there.
I also like to add a few pictures
in terms of where the eye. Yeah, go ahead. I mean, my point is that even though I'm not talking about the button part, I'm talking about it's just me. Obviously, I mean, everyone else can have an opinion about it. Most people won't care. That is also the big thing too. People don't care. But as I look at things, I don't look at things individually. I look at everything all together. So I can look at how it is on you and the jacket simultaneously. And so again, when I look at this picture, I can see that yes, your button is at the middle of your body. That's great. I can also see that your pocket, the bottom button goes beyond the pocket line. So I don't give any of those things like one over the other. I look at both of those things simultaneously. And so again, when you look at it in proportion to itself, it is off. Like in proportion to itself, again, it's right there. And again, you can also argue like a lot of different other stuff too. But when you look at all the comments on my Instagram post where I talk about this stuff too, everyone there says either they say they never noticed it before, but when they look at their jackets, it all does it. So it's something that, like you say,
do they say though that because of that they would also abandon the jacket? If that was the only issue with the jacket, they would abandon it, because that's what issue of you.
No. That is not the thing there. That is not the thing here. It is not that they would abandon the jacket. Is that they've had this ingrained in them enough that they don't even consider it. That already have this taste within them already. Where I must have this taste already because all my jackets do this. That is my point. So the fact is, again, it is going different. Is that you are intentionally going against the whole grain of the basic proportions of a jacket, and you are it is something that is outside the norm. And of course, then you would argue that fine, then you are intentionally doing it because you want that thing. Then it just becomes different taste where you like having the bottom button go past the pocket. But
I don't think anyone likes having the bottom button go past the pocket. It's just again,
exactly.
it's a matter of degrees. It's such a minor infraction. It's virtually inconsequential.
It probably is. I mean, I'm not going to say that it's not.
So it wouldn't break a jacket. It wouldn't break the jacket for me then. If it's
for you, yes, for you. But I guess for you, fine. I mean, obviously you have your own stuff for it, but a lot of other people inherently have this thing ingrained into them where they don't do it. That's just what it is. Like, yes, you can talk about how it's inconsequential for it, but the thing is, like, these people, like, they don't know it, but they already know it, right? It's like, being an asshole is taught. Like, some people just don't make racist jokes because the thought doesn't occur to them.
But what I'm saying, though, Ethan, is if you found a jacket that was perfect in every other cut and style aspect, and it fit perfectly, and the fabric was perfect, the only problem here was that the bottom button did not line up with the pocket. You would advise, if someone was looking at it, you'd advise them not to get a jacket. If it was for yourself, you wouldn't get the jacket.
I really want to point out that
that seems like putting a lot of emphasis on one little detail.
Ethan,
it's imbalanced. It's one mistake, and you have all these other things going for it. Maybe it's a good price too. You're going to abandon all of that.
Before we continue, I do want to point out that Ethan just compared buying a jacket with a drop button stance to being a racist.
Right.
I didn't even process that. They're one and the same. Oh my god!
It was the only thing I could think of that was like inherent in someone's mind. Like,
it's not that type of show.
I posted a few pictures in the chat as well, and I like to explain them briefly. So one of them is a picture of Sean Connery in Thunderball from 1965. His suits were tailored by Anthony Sinclair. For that
don't like that suit.
Again, that's your opinion.
That is a ridiculous thing to say.
Again, that's your opinion, but that's Anthony Sinclair in 1965. The second picture is of Simon Crompton, maybe like a year or two ago, wearing a Tom Sweeney jacket. Two guys, a company founded by people who apprenticed on Savile Row, that also has a bottom button below the pocket line. And the final image is it's of one of Spear McKay's ready-to-wear options, where last button is also below the pocket line. So before we talked about how we'll focus slowly on Ivy manufacturers and how maybe that bottom button was lower because they were kind of lazy over their button spacing and just moved it all down instead of changing the spacing as well to be more proportionate. But I posted 3 other examples of other makers from a wide spectrum and a wide spectrum of eras and a wide spectrum of locations also doing the same thing. And having found other pictures like this, it seems to me that there's a good argument to be made that this detail, the fact that the bottom button should line up with the pocket, it's a non-issue. It doesn't seem like an understood rule. I don't think you can go so far as to say that these makers were made bad jackets. They made them so because I don't think it matters. And what Ethan has said so far hasn't really. I don't get it, man. I don't get how that bottom.
You don't get it. Okay, here's the thing here. So, what matters is when you are this. It's about taste, because if we take the Sean Connery suit, I don't like it because the shoulders are too broad. Not talking about him. I'm talking about the actual style of it. Of course, it's a matter of opinion.
That's unrelated to the idea of the button stance.
Well, I was talking about Kyoshi, where he's saying that's a ridiculous opinion to have. I cannot like Sean Connery's suit in Thunderball. I can just not like it. I mean, Spencer and I have talked about Bond suits in the past. We've also he looks good, but we don't like the suit. I mean, that's just what it is. So I don't have to like everything. Not liking things is an inherent point of having a personal style, and that is kind of like what it is. I mean, you can't, if you everything.
You can not like something, but still say it looks. I think it could be something that you wouldn't wear, but I don't think that means it looks bad. There's a big difference between those two things, and I feel like this aspect of the button placement with the pocket doesn't necessarily mean a suit looks bad. It's just not something that you would personally wear.
Yeah,
and building on that, makes it a bad suit. Like, I just don't think that makes it a bad suit per se. If all the other things about a suit say are correct, like, I think the reason to not like this Bond suit might be, the width of lapels, or just kind of how it has basically no shape. I don't know, whatever. But I feel like that doesn't necessarily mean that's a bad suit just for the one reason. It might be one of many reasons why it's a bad suit.
Well, yeah, and that is also the point too, right? I mean, like I said,
and building off what Kyoshi said, though, it's totally insightful, and I respect you holding the opinion that the bottom button should line up with the pocket. It's fine to have, but where I have an issue, I suppose, is you've turned it into a broad sweeping statement. It's not that I think jackets with the bottom button misaligned are bad. It's jackets with the bottom button misaligned are bad. All jackets. If I post a picture of a jacket with the bottom button misaligned, and you tell me it's a bad jacket, it's fine to have your own opinions, but here you're universal.
Yeah, because you don't like that I don't like your jacket.
How can you apply it universally? Well, you could if you could give me an objective reason as to why that's bad.
No, I don't. No, it doesn't have to be an objective thing. It's like how people say I can just not like the movie. Like I don't have to explain to you that a movie has to be like, oh, it didn't have the right lighting. Like, no, you can just not like a jacket. Like, you can not like a movie. It's like how you can not like a jacket. I mean, it's also everyone talks in hyperbole. Like when I say I hate influencers, I get talked all the time like, oh well, you shouldn't put hate into the world. Like don't say that's a strong word. I can say whatever the fuck I want. Like it's just I don't have to be like, well, this influencer's bad. Like no. Like
America.
It doesn't fucking matter. Like it's I don't like it, and I can say that I don't like it. I can say that I consider this a bad thing. I mean, bad is an objective thing. Oh no, sorry, a subjective.
You're telling your followers and telling people who follow you to choose according to what you think is a bad thing, and.
But I'm not. See, I'm not recommending. My blog is about.
You told them not to buy jackets where the bottom button is below the pocket line.
And you can
other guys
listen to me whenever you want to. You can listen to me whether or not. I mean, I talk about spear point collars. You don't have to wear a spear point collar, baby. Like that's all on you. I mean, that's why I don't monetize the blog, because I have very strong opinions where I say what I like. And the thing is, you have the freedom to do whatever you want. Don't be upset when I say that your thing, I don't like your thing. It doesn't matter what you can still be a stylish person and wear something that I don't like. I think that's a very valid opinion. Like no,
you're mistaken. I'm not offended there, Ethan, but I wish I could understand where you're coming from there, because I still don't see why just that bottom button throws the proportions off, because it's a proportion that doesn't exist other than when it's hanging off a hanger.
I want to bring up too, I think when there are flap pockets, having the bottom button not be in line with the top of the flap sometimes looks better. When it matches with the middle of the flap and you leave the flaps out, I think that's like a much more sort of harmonious look when it bisects the flap line. So like on the D workwear picture, it's perfect in the middle of that line.
My friend Doug, who I had this conversation with, made it too, where if you tuck the flap into the pocket, the bottom button would be in line with the actual pocket line, not the top of the flap, but the pocket line itself, and that is also a thing. So good, thank you, John, for bringing that one up. That is a very important thing to know, which is probably why if I did have one, I would probably see if it had that, but I don't have a jacket that does that because I don't own one. But
I'm just curious, like Ethan, why of all the things, all the details on a jacket, is this like the one detail that you're willing to die on this hill on? And like I can understand like having an opinion. It's like, oh, I don't like barchetta style like breast pockets. I like them straight across. Or like whatever detail you could pick out possibly on a coat when it comes to, let's just broadly say, design. But why is this like the one thing of all the things on a jacket that is just like, plant the flag on the top of the hill and say, bring it on. I will never, this is the one thing like that just drives me insane.
Again, I think
just want to know why.
Oh, sure. So again, all this opinion is something people have ingrained into them. Well, not maybe not ingrained, but a lot of people have this sentiment without even knowing it. Because again, when we look at the stuff, whether it's Blog, whether it's Mitchell Moss from Menswear Musings, we all say that most of the stuff that we have all fall into this thing. It's just I'm verbalizing it, and I've made it a big deal. So I think a lot of people, like Kiyoshi, before the chat, you said that you tried to find pictures of your clients doing it, and more often than not, it seldom happened. I'm sure it does happen, but I'm saying it's seldom happened.
I would like to add though, I found pictures of Kiyoshi doing it. There's suits you wear on your Instagram, Kiyoshi, where that bottom button is below the pocket line actually. So
that jacket there you go. A little. I mean, the patch pockets are arched, so it's not like the patch pockets are a straight line. So
there's also a charcoal suit though, one of your older posts, where it's a jetty pocket.
Yeah, I mean, it's...
the thing is, I lower my button stance. This is where we're going to disagree too, but I like an extremely low button stance because I like a very long, elongated look.
Yeah.
But, apparently that might affect it. But again, like...
Could be, yeah.
But before this week, I had never even thought about this as a thing.
See? Yeah.
But... So I'm not sure I'm going to think about it after this week either, to be pretty frank.
Right. But the thing is, it'll probably, I mean, like I said, you probably don't think about it, but it'll probably, like, when your maker does it, it might line, it might not. But more often than not, with all stuff like if you look at like Rain Jacket Ready to Wear or something like that, we all see it have the harmony. It might not be a conscious thing, but at some point in the past, it was a conscious thing to like lower it. Like Al just said, maybe they punched it a little bit lower or whatever. So the reason why I have it, I can't really verbalize exactly why, but it is just something I've always noticed when I'm studying the way jackets were cut, whether it's back then or today, comparing the two. Because again, I think in the chat before I commented on Sitchio, where Sitchio has a lower button stance. Just kind of, if you look at it, it looks kind of low. It has a very elongated, kind of reverse belly, so it emphasizes that long line. But he has the bottom button in line with the pocket. So it's definitely possible to have a lower button stance and that kind of thing, in the pocket harmony. So it's just something, I mean, everyone has, if we want to move this over into like, standards of buying things, it's just something that I have. People just have that, some people, they just, there are things you can't verbalize where like it just looks bad to you or it just doesn't look attractive to you, whatever. You just have those things. And like Jeremy says, where was it here? I think he said negation is just as, if not more important than affirmation. And again, it is definitely appropriate to say and verbalize what you like and what you don't like, and whether or not you'd wear it or not, or what you'd recommend to people. Because again, that's all about determining what your style is, what you die on a hill on. It's so like some people like certain bands. Yeah, you dye workwear, but I mean, a lot of people have these things. Some people just don't have it in clothing. I'm sure that there's something where like, oh, I really like Szechuan style cuisine over other, other Chinese style of stuff. Yeah, exactly, spice. And the thing is, like, some people can say, oh, well, I like the spice more here. Some people just be like, well, I just like this. It just tastes better.
The issue here is that you're not saying that you like the spice. You're saying that spice is better and non-spicy food is bad.
Yeah, for you. I mean, I'm saying, people say hyperbole. Don't read into the words. Like, don't say like, if someone is watching this and is buying everything based on what I'm saying, that goes inherently against what my blog is about. I'm doing it for me. This is why all the blog posts are written by me, for using me as a subject. I'm sure I've featured people on the blog who have the lower button stance, and I still think that they look fine. I mean, I think, the fact that people are on the blog should show that I am okay with it, but if people were to ask me my opinion, I am not going to lie to them. I have...
But you're telling them all these things in a way. You're telling them that this is
I'm not telling you. You literally bought this jacket. You're not listening. You didn't listen.
Yeah, yes, I'm not listening. But you're making statements to followers that this is a bad jacket. Don't buy these jackets. And I just think because I don't understand it, I don't like that. It needs to be justified to tell someone to do something.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't have to be justified. If people, I think that you can.
It doesn't have to, but it ought to be.
Yeah, I'm saying that's what I'm saying. It's fine. It doesn't have to be, because Aldous, I think you look at things from a very practical standpoint. You don't buy things emotionally, or again, we talk about the whole sock thing, right? Where you don't do it. Yeah. So I think there's the difference here where, for you, it's got to be like, well, if you don't like this, you got to explain why. Like, I can just like this thing, or I can not like this thing, just like with white socks. I mean, we can all verbalize why we like white socks, but if you don't have that thing, we can't convince you otherwise. This is kind of like, it's one of those things. So, and I've made it, I don't think it's my mission. Again, whenever I'm doing all stuff, I don't measure it, make sure it's the same, minuscule millimeter off from the thing. I just have done it long enough where I buy something and all of the jackets I own, again, we're talking about single-breasted because DBs, I give a little bit of a pass through. We can get into that future thing and later on sometime else. But all my single-breasted jackets all have this pocket button harmony, and it is not something that I agonize over, or like all just says, like, oh, and now my wardrobe's completely bad, I gotta replace everything. I don't have that. I don't actually think about it that much. The only time it comes up,
but it's because you never bought it to begin with. If you had a wardrobe, but if you had a wardrobe, you would be getting rid of it because of this feeling of yours.
If I had it, if I bought it, but I think to me it's so natural. And the thing is, the way Kyoshi and all this are positioning is like something that it's something I like to die on my hill on, but it's a hill that I don't even think about because it's so ingrained within me. I don't, like you say, like, oh, if I found a perfect jacket that had everything but it had the bottom pocket, I wouldn't even consider it a perfect jacket because it just wouldn't be on my radar. I'm not like, it's just like, it's like you're on Tinder, you swipe left, you swipe right. If it doesn't engage you, you don't think that you're missing on anything. You don't think, oh, well, that person was great except for one thing. Like, no, it didn't grab you, dude. Like, it's fine. And you just move on and you wait for the right thing. I don't have that issue of like, well, it's right here and I've got to have it, but then it doesn't have this. It's okay. I'm going to work through it. I don't have that problem. I've never had that problem. I just move on from it because.
But to be clear, I'm not working through it. But to be clear, I'm not working through anything though. As I said earlier, it's a non-issue, so I'm not working through anything. I think the jacket's fine. So that's where
it's 100% fine. Like, you love it completely.
Well, if I didn't like it, it wouldn't be anything to do with that bottom button. If we are going to be perfectly truthful.
Well, yeah, I mean, if we're just talking about picky,
I'm having reservations
things.
on the fabric.
Like, what are some of your mitigating things? Because, like, okay, well, let's
before we transition, can I say a little thing?
Go ahead.
Okay, so I'll just can you just describe like how you came across the jacket, what went through your head, and then like the decisions, if any, in your brain before buying it?
Right. So I'm actually pretty late to the eBay game. Most of the other guys here started out thrifting things on eBay, but I only recently got to it because I was tired of filling out my wardrobe with Spear McKay purchases, which are quite pricey. So I was looking for ways to fill my wardrobe, and by this point I'd gone to the stage in my wardrobe where the stuff I wanted the slots I wanted to fill, I wasn't entirely sure about. To be more specific about it, brand check jackets. I've never been much of a brands person. I don't have a lot of brand check jackets. I didn't want to spend like $1,000 on MCM Spear jackets, so I started going to eBay to look for brand jackets that I liked. And what drew me to this J-Press jacket first and foremost was the fabric, the look of it. The fabric. I didn't have a jacket in that sort of a brand or in that sort of a check, and I thought
that sort of combination, right?
Yeah. It looks kind of all right. It's my size too. Might as well add it. I did notice that the bottom button wasn't in line with the pocket, but as I've explained before, it's a non-issue for me. Would I rather that pocket lined up, if only to not get into an argument with Ethan? Yeah, sure. Why not?
Sorry, I didn't quite hear you. You said you didn't notice that initially when you were looking at it?
I did notice.
Oh, you did? Okay. So you're kind of, okay.
But as I've explained, it's not really an issue for me.
No, right. Yeah. So, but you saw, like, again, you had this kind of hole in your wardrobe. You found it for what I assume, you don't have to say it, but like a good value as opposed to this Spear made to measure. And it satisfied enough of your needs. It was like the brown, what is it, tweed, or what fabric is it?
It's like a heavy wool, but
like a heavy wool. It got the wool brown check, and again, like my it satisfied enough of your needs, and you're like, I don't have this thing, and then it's this price, so I'll go for it, right?
Pretty much, yes.
Yeah, I think it's like when I think about this like issue, it makes me we were talking about it, and then I looked at some of my tailoring, and I was like, oh, that does it, or oh, that doesn't do it. And then I look at all the examples people post and when things align and when they don't align, and I say, oh, well, sure, that'd be nice. That'd be a nice aesthetic thing, but is it dependent on what I have or what I'd like to get in the future? I mean, it's a nice thing if it were there, but if I am like in a decision, do I get this thing? Is it contingent on that bottom button placement? For me personally, probably not. I'm probably thinking about other things, other details I like that we can get into later. But I think just some people have different priorities with certain things, and I think that there are other details that some people are really willing to sacrifice, and other things that really matter to them. Yeah.
No, I definitely agree. I mean, people have different thresholds for certain things, and I think again, my thing is normally if a button's in the harmony with the jacket, the rest of the jacket is usually pretty good. I mean, I haven't seen the opposite of this where I've seen a button, jacket where everything was perfect except for the bottom button. Usually when that happens, everything like there's something else wrong with it, and Aldous would say that too.
Right? Mm-hmm. On these J-Press jackets, everything. Or old Brooks Brothers jackets, for example, sack suits from the 80s, where center button is in the right place. It's really just the spacing of the buttons that puts that bottom button below.
It could be. I mean, I don't know. I mean, like you said, it looks like if you were to look at it, I feel like there is a very minuscule dropped buttoning point. Also, just jackets were longer or whatever. There's a lot of stuff like that. Even Spear and McKay says here, by default, this is the rule that most pattern makers we've worked with follow. That said, it can vary depending on the style and overall length of the jacket, but agree, the alignment creates a better overall balance visually. So it's a thing that comes also from the maker standpoint, where things
it's also inconsequential to the point that Spear and McKay, as in one of the pictures I showed you earlier, they're making jackets with that bottom button below the pocket line.
Well, that's also a 2-button thing. I think the reason why they brought it up here is because it's a Neapolitan cut 3-button jacket.
Well, this one's a Neapolitan cut too.
2-button? That's weird.
Yes.
But anyway, I mean, hey, but Spear, I guess maybe moving forward now, that is what they like.
Meaning that they prefer. Again, it goes back to the idea of yes, it's something we prefer, but it's such a non-issue that even if we end up mass-producing jackets with this feature, we're not going to reject them on that. It's fine. It's fine. No one notices, and it doesn't really.
I mean, like I said, you can buy whatever you want. So if I go back to what Double Breast Waistcoat says here, it's like all this is getting at is Ethan where his articles mixing his only judgment is correct. That is also correct because I am writing from my own judgment. I don't write guides for people. I'm like, here's what a jacket should be like. This is more like, here is what my Ethan's perfect jacket looks like. So it's always
you are an influential person, Ethan. You have a lot of followers.
Yes, but the thing is,
even if that's not your intention, that's what's going to end up being for a lot of people. You have to understand.
That's not my problem though, because again, if you look, I mean, that's why I would recommend people to go look at Permanent Style if you want to look at a capsule wardrobe. If you want to learn about reviews on Spear and Natalino trousers, talk to Zane or whatever. I'm always going to write about what I'm wearing. Like that is not. I don't have any dream of being like the guy you come to for your clothing advice. I prefer that you don't. I prefer that you come to me with a very.
I know what you want to be.
Well, I mean, again, that is why. And if someone asks me about, hey, what jacket should I get? I'm like, dude, I don't know what you should do. I tell people, but if you are reading into that, then that is not my fault, and that is why I write like this. Because again, it's very objective. I make no secret how subjective I am because I am writing from my own standpoint. I'm writing about how much I love spear point collars, and if you get from that Ethan hates spread collars, that could be the case. And I literally don't own a spread collar shirt because of that reason. If you come to here, again, this is not, if you're reading like a guide to something, we're, maybe it might have a more open stance, but more often than not, we're going to be talking about things that we specifically like because it fulfills a very specific aesthetic that we're into. We're not, again, not everyone is in the mood for milsurp, but that is something that we talk about because we do it. Not everyone is in the mood for wide leg pants, but I wear it because that is what it is.
Yes,
if you ask me, hey,
you don't say that they're better. You don't say that milsurp's better than other casual wear you can get than other casual.
But you're asking me for my opinion, though. I mean, it's like, of course I'm gonna think it's better because that's what I'm gonna pick.
Well, if I'm asking you for your opinion, then yes, you have a right to say that.
That's exactly what I'm saying, dude. Like, don't worry about it, man.
But you're telling people on Instagram that these are bad jackets and these are good jackets. It's like if you post the milsurp article and say that this is bad casual wear and this is good casual wear. I don't think that's right.
Is it just coming down to a debate about like civility? Just a civility debate now.
And this is like the dirtbag left versus like a centrist opinion right here. Like I am not going to I'm not going to just be nice about everything. Like Jeremy said, it is not about like accepting everything in affirmation. It is about defining what you like and what you don't like. And if people come to it, again, it's about like what you said, like it's bad in terms of my value judgment over an objective thing. And that is what I'm saying. It's like it's I don't like it. And again, you're the one reading into everything like this. It doesn't matter to me what you wear. Like, when people come to me and they ask me something, of course I'm going to tell them that I don't like it. But if they're happy with it, then it doesn't matter. And if they're confident in everything, I still take pictures. I have plenty of guys in there who wear padded shoulders and wide peak lapels, very 70s looks. And even if I've said repeatedly I will not wear it, and you will catch me dead before I wear it, I still feature them because they look great. Aldous, if you wore it when you're hanging out, I would still take your picture and put it on the blog. I will still say that I don't prefer it, or I might not say overtly like that, but I would still have you on the thing. Like that's not like, don't equate me thinking something is bad, thinking that you don't have a right to wear it. I think that that's what it is. You're just upset with the fact that I'm making a blanketing statement, but my blanket statements also mean nothing. Also the blog's not monetized. People don't care. People aren't like reading into this whole thing. No one is out there like, oh man, what is Ethan wearing next? I got to buy that exact thing.
But I don't think that's correct. I think there are people. I know that's not your intention, but it's becoming more and more that way. I think just because of the amount of influence you're having.
Well, that's bad.
But it's inevitable, and it's happening if it hasn't happened already.
Well, then good. Hey, if you want to dress like me, then go ahead. That's what it is. People should be able to, I've talked about why I hate influencers. This is why I don't make stuff like saying, you should buy this. I say, this is what I'm wearing, and I consider this good. So if you agree with that, then yes, buy it. If not, then, feel free to make your own, opinions, dude. That's what it is. And that's why, again, Spencer is on this, and me and Spencer we used to have a very similar tailoring taste, and Spencer does not wear clothes the same way I do anymore. But that doesn't detract from anything. Spencer is still on the blog, and it is, he's not writing it, obviously, but it's still something I look at and I take inspiration from. I think that's also what I've taught too, where even if there's something you don't like, you can still take inspiration from it, and apply it in your own thing. Just like how, I get that what you're trying to do in terms of the buying of the jacket. There was that awesome, very great. Let me see if I can find a picture of it. I found it right here. It is it also J Press, Aldous?
Sorry, which one?
The original, the one, the 3-roll-2 one.
Yeah,
from the 30s. Yeah. So in this case, Aldous is here wearing, he wanted this jacket, which I've seen before on eBay. Like I think it's like a couple of years ago, right?
Yeah,
it's
like
a very old
bucks, from 1935.
Yeah, and I totally get it. I used to be in this stage of like approximating things, but again, what I really want to get to is the fact that at a certain point, it's about how willing you are to coalesce on things for the sake of the other details. Because again, like Aldous, and I still I agree to a certain extent, where sometimes some things are impossible to find, and you don't want to wait for it. So I get that. I just this comes from a different stage. Like Aldous said, he is in a different area of eBay. He's just discovered it, at least in terms of clothing. Maybe not just discovered it, but he's using it more for clothes now.
I kind of just discovered it, I guess.
Yeah, but I think what my cautionary tale is, if we want to talk about me, Ethan dictating his fashion fascistic things, is that I've gone through a lot of this stuff where I've bought things that I've acquiesced on, or I've relented or succumbed to, and at the end of the day, I just didn't like it. It wasn't like, oh, I'm gonna upgrade it later.
It might be an issue of semantics, even. And what you said earlier about the centrist idea versus what you say, like dirty, filthy left or something.
That
might be dirtbag left. That might have a bit of a bearing in it, in the sense that if you said, for example, a misalignment between the bottom button and the pocket line is it results in an imbalanced jacket, as far as I'm concerned, that seems fine to me. But that's not what you said. You said bad jackets don't have that button in line with the pocket,
because they're not balanced.
But it's
right.
But one is just a solid blanket statement, and it's not necessarily that they're bad. You have to understand that we're all in agreement
Yeah,
here.
you're mad that I called something bad, and you're mad that you got like that's basically what it is. You're mad. You don't like the fact that I called something bad.
Well,
Okay.
in a less than ideal world, then we'd have in a less than ideal world, if the worst case scenario would then be a bunch of people coming on my page and roasting me and saying I have a bad jacket. Why would you buy such a bad jacket? But it's a subjective.
Spencer, go ahead.
I mean, I was just gonna say it's like I really don't think that, like, no offense to Ethan, but I think you are kind of overstating his. I really don't think he has that kind of rabid fan base like that. And you said worst case scenario world, but
yeah,
I don't think
it's unlikely to happen. But I don't think
a person who posts content like Ethan's will ever get a fan base like that.
Exactly.
It's very niche and like.
It literally is it's literally me. I mean, again,
arguably
a
lot of the Vietnam, a lot of the menswear guys in Vietnam.
But they're not gonna go on your page.
Yeah, they're not going to do that. And also, if they did that, they would be more specific about it. Like there's a lot of different stuff out there. I think that again, you're overstating influence here. I'm very, very grateful that you think I'm very influential, but I'm not. I think that again, I've always made it a point to be like, dude, I'm just a regular guy with opinions. And I don't think that I have to hide from them just because of the follower thing, because I assume that my followers are smart enough to know, I guess, take hyperbole or whatever, because again, clearly I don't think it's that bad because I think you look great in it, and I would still take your picture if you wore it and I would put it on the blog. I feel like that, again, that is not a thing, but you don't like the fact that I use the word bad and that I'm focusing on that to me is like that's kind of a different issue there. Again, dirtbag left, stability politics.
And I suppose yes, you have to call me a centrist. I'd rather be more in the center of things. I suppose I'll express my opinion.
Hey, you heard it here, guys. Aldous is a centrist. 2020.
All right.
Now I'll get fucking roasted.
All right.
But I don't mind expressing opinions, but just I guess it's a difference in personality. Personally, well, I wouldn't. So,
definitely.
It's just a thing of like. Me personally, someone's scratching their mic. Sorry. Okay. Anyway, me personally, I'm someone of like lower income, at least for like spending money, at least. So it's a thing
most of us are in that boat too.
Yeah. Right. And it's a thing of, I'm going to try this thing. And maybe it's not and I don't think this is the case with most of us. It's not, maybe the purchase isn't always as negotiated with a group first. Like a group like us, and so we get something that we like, and then maybe there are some flaws with it, or we get self-conscious about it, or something like that. And I feel this a lot, or it's the opposite, where just no one really cares, and so you kind of question it, like, did this need to happen? Why did I do this? So, and then you look, and Ethan, in a way, he can kind of like be our mom in a whole way because he's had like a plethora of experience. And he's just like, well, you could get that tattoo, but, I don't know. You might regret it later. So we're like, shut up, mom. I'm just going to do my own thing. Because, like, we all have our own kind of, like, path.
Yeah.
But, we know in the back, hindsight, he might know what he was talking about in that instant. But I think there's a diversion where we all have to explore what works for us, even if it's not necessarily what might be ideal in some light or smart or proactive.
Because I would hate to surround myself with people who dress exactly like me. I mean, I don't think anyone will, because we all have different tastes, and not just buttoning point, but also like shoulders and lapels and Excuse me, take a shot, guys. That's been a while since I've taken a shot, right? But stuff like that, where I would